Okay. Well, hi everyone. This is Content Creators Corner, a new web series for the International Academy of Web Television. It's where we pick a topic, find guests who specialize in that topic, and try to answer your questions. So we have some great guests today, and my name is Marx Pyle. I'm an IAWTV member. I'm a web series creator, indie filmmaker, author of the book Television on the Wild Wild Web, How to Blaze Your Own Trail, and also co-host of the podcast Genretainment, which is probably a pretty good lead-in for my mysterious co-host over
Hi.
here, who is from the Genretainment, Julie.
Hello.
So she'll be the mysterious head that pops in occasionally. She's going to be watching for your tweets, hashtag IAWTV. So if you have any questions for our guests on the panel, please feel free to tweet us. Now, who are our guests? We have some really great ones, I think. We have Eric. Now, we don't have Emily Best. I did advertise that first, but we have the next best person from Seed and Spark. We have Erica Anderson. She's a film campaign strategist for the crowdfunding platform Seed and Spark, and also she's the director of crowdfunding and community manager for Seed and Spark. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
And then we have Ben Dobbins, IAWTV member and CEO. Oh, there you go, there's your lower thirds. Of Zombie Orpheus Entertainment, multiple successful Kickstarter campaigns and an ongoing Patreon campaign. And then we have John T. Trigonis, yes. And
Erica knows.
Did I say it right?
Perfect.
Awesome.
And you're the film campaign strategist for the crowdfunding platform Indiegogo and author of the excellent book Crowdfunding for Filmmakers. Thank you so much for joining us, guys. So why don't we start off with just elaborating a little bit on what I said to you guys, or about you guys, I should say. Why don't we start off, ladies first, with Erica, a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved in crowdfunding.
Sure. So we started Seed and Spark we launched in 2012, and it was something that Seed and Spark is a film-specific crowdfunding platform, and we also have a distribution component of the site. So it was something that we developed when we were working on a film ourselves, and our site is structured like a wedding registry on the crowdfunding side. So we really encourage filmmakers to use crowdfunding as a way to build their audience, and part of that is educating your audience and what you need and what actually goes into filmmaking. So my background was as a producer and actor in the commercial and advertising world, and then an actor in the film, TV, theater. And Seed and Spark was something that we developed really as a necessity that we wanted it to exist in a world that we wanted to work in. So we created it.
Great. And John.
Yeah, cool. So I am I'm basically the crowdfunding strategist at Indiegogo for film campaigns specifically, and basically what that means is I work with as many of our campaigns, film, web, video campaigns as possible, and give them hands-on advice, training, so they can run a better, stronger, and faster campaign. I work with a lot of the bigger campaigns, but also campaigns that are up in funding for $5,000 all the way to like $5 million. And yeah, that's basically what I do at Indiegogo. Also a bit of a social media guy, so I take care of the Indiegogo Twitter a bit, as well as my own Twitter at Trigonis, which is me and my last name. And then a couple of years back, I wrote a book called Crowdfunding for Filmmakers for Michael Wiese Productions, and that was written mainly to educate people, because I was doing it on my own through Twitter, and I wasn't, I don't like to charge people for services, so I have a problem with that. So Indiegogo ultimately caught wind of me, the advice I was giving, and the fact that I had this book out, and was like, well, hey, we'll pay you and do this for us. And I was like, works for me. So yeah, now I get to do that. That's been great.
Great. And Ben.
Sure. Well, I crowdfunded my first film in 1999 the old-fashioned way, just getting direct contributions and raised $3,000. Have been modifying and working with that ever since. In 2010, we launched Zombie Orpheus Entertainment after a bad experience with Hollywood distribution, with the whole idea that we would be completely fan-supported and creator-distributed. We're bringing in a lot of fan contributions, and they eventually said, hey, why don't you move over to this crazy new Kickstarter platform? So we moved over to Kickstarter. We set some records there. Launched a monthly subscription service to create something even more sustainable, and about 6 months later Patreon came along, and so we eventually were able to shift over to there. And so it's just been a gradual process of adopting the best tools as they come along, and we've raised, I think, on our campaigns somewhere between 700 and 800 grand so far. We briefly held the Kickstarter record for film and video. 36 hours. Charlie Kaufman beat us by $300 and got all the press. And we are running a Kickstarter campaign right now. I've advised on dozens of campaigns for Kickstarter, for Indiegogo, for Seed and Spark. And it looks like the campaign that we have going right now might be the very first one that actually doesn't succeed.
Oh, well, it's still early. Still early.
It's still early, but it just shows no matter how well you're playing, you just never know.
No, you never know. So before we preach about how great crowdfunding is, because we are, I'm sure, let's talk a little bit about those people who maybe should not crowdfund. What are some things to watch for those people who aren't quite ready yet?
People who haven't built demand, especially if they're creating works of art. It's easier to sell a device. It's easier to sell a technological item if you have and show proof of concept. If you don't have a track record behind you, if you don't have people asking for what you're doing, and you're saying, "I want $1 million to make this movie, trust me," where's the record that people can go on?
Yeah, I think filmmakers a lot of times forget the sort of that they are a small business as well. So the things that small business owners have had to do for years is, build trust and reputation, get them, do marketing ahead of time so that people actually know what they're doing and know what they're about, and that they're trustworthy, that they're going to do what they say they're going to do. So I wish that the word was crowd ... funding, because I think there's this misconception that people are looking for the funding crowd, that there's this sort of big general they out there, that they will find out about me somehow and they will be interested in what I'm doing. And I think it's the same sort of ideas of like how you get to be friends with people and how you create a professional network. The first thing you do isn't ask for money. When you walk into a party, I don't say, "Hi, I'm Erica, I need 50 grand." And it's the same thing. You have to build a crowd and get a crowd excited and engaged before you can ever ask them to do anything for you, like give you money.
Yeah, again, I agree with absolutely both of what they're saying. I think the key thing is the audience. I don't like to necessarily focus on like the people that shouldn't crowdfund. And about a couple of years ago, I believed that everybody should crowdfund. Now I'm kind of like, no, there's a few people that shouldn't, at least not yet. And these are people that haven't built the brand equity for themselves. They haven't built the audience, most importantly, because they believe in the mythology of crowdfunding, that if you build it, they will come. That, like Erica says, there's a funding community out there, that if I get on a homepage, if I get in the news, like, no. You're bringing your crowd. I have this thing that I called crowd finding. That is the more important step to crowdfunding than the actual crowdfunding, because the crowd must come before the funding. And if you think, so if I had to break it in a nutshell, I would actually say the only people that shouldn't ever crowdfund are people who actually are in it because they want that money, because you're doing it for the wrong reason. You got to want to engage the audience and the crowd, and then the money is going to just come to you.
Yeah, I really agree with everything you said, John. And I think the thing that's really important to remember too about crowdfunding is that is the word "yet" that you said. You may not be ready yet, and there are a lot of things that you need to have in place, and audience is one of them. But I think another really key thing to crowdfunding is that you're able to say to your audience, this is how much money I need, and this is where it's going to get me, and this is how I'm going to get there. So you're not ready to crowdfund unless you can answer those questions. Who's your movie for? What are you going to do with it? And how are you going to do that? So there's a huge amount of preparation that goes into that. And if done right, crowdfunding is really marketing for your film. If done wrong, then it's a bunch of work that really doesn't get you very much more exposure than you had to begin with.
Okay, great.
Is that all? Okay.
Now we do have a question.
We have a question from IAWTV member LSR Cabrera.
Yes.
Get over more? Okay. Here's the question. Does the popularity of the use of crowdfunding for web series demonstrate there is no alternative and credible business plan producers can take to film investors? Okay, I'm out.
Now, what's your guys' opinion on that?
I think a lot of people are sort of viewing web series as the next sort of short film. So short films were a lot of, considered the calling card, the thing that you made to sort of get your foot in the door and to get people to see what you were doing. I view web series as this incredible platform to be able to explore different kinds of stories and different filmmaking abilities that have, the stakes are a little bit lower. But I feel like there's this view of, serialized television content or some like a longer form serialized content and web series, and somehow people think of them in a different way. But we're seeing more and more people actually be able to monetize their web series and getting picked up for larger distribution. And I think that it's still a little bit more of the Wild West, but that some really exciting things are happening in web series because it's a bunch of artists making exactly what they want to make. So to me, it's definitely, the rules are different, and I don't know that all the rules are written just yet.
And I think in some ways it requires a different kind of investor and a really strong knowledge of exactly what your business goals are. If your goal is to use your original series, your web series, as a calling card to get into traditional Hollywood, that's going to be a very different kind of model for investment than if your goal is, like we're doing with Zombie Orpheus, to create something that is ongoing and sustainable and independent. In the latter case, it means like we've turned down a lot of venture capital, for example, because venture capital is looking for an exit strategy. But if we hadn't been clear about what our plan was, we might have ended up accepting that money and really getting into trouble. Instead, we've gone the private equity route, and our first set of investors we paid back in a year, which is almost unheard of for independent film. This might be going too far afield, but for me, a lot of the problem that we face is the same problem that software as a service business models face, which is where you're trying to build a certain threshold of support that creates sustainability. But let's say you bring money in and you're losing money and you're losing money and you're losing your investors' money until you reach that point of profitability. The best move you can make at that point is to now start losing a lot more money so that you can increase your rate of adoption. And you want to do that multiple times, and that means finding investors who not only understand the creative goals that you have, but also understanding that this process of building that kind of sustainable crowdfunding audience that you want to return to over and over again is going to require constant infusions of capital to get to the point where you can operate at a level that isn't going to kill you in the long run.
Mm-hmm. What's your feeling, John?
Marx, could you actually repeat that question? Because I just want to make sure I understand it 100%.
Oh, sure. So it was, does the popularity of the use of crowdfunding for web series demonstrate there is no alternative and credible business plan producers can take to film investors? I guess that perhaps crowdfunding might be the only valid...
The only option to get these funded.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I have a quick opinion on that, but I think Eric and Ben got it pretty much accurate. But I think like crowdfunding is really a supplement for a lot of things in a few different ways. So I think when you're first starting out doing a web series and you're getting your feet wet in that Wild West world that it is, there is that freedom, and crowdfunding can move things along to ultimately get people to, the investor types to actually realize that there is some validity. And, again, it's kind of like making short films. I've made short films for 10 years, and each one I've added more funding, and I've gotten funding from various sources, on a few of them. And, with crowdfunding, it's just that one aspect of it. When you decide that, the thing that people have to understand is when you decide to go with crowdfunding, you're making a conscious decision to involve the audience, in that process. And that's the difference. I always tell people with investors, like, yeah, investors are great, but like, and that's great because it gets you that sustainability that you'd ultimately need, but they'll never get you an audience. So crowdfunding, it's almost like the investor's best friend, because they can give a little bit of money, you get the rest of the money, and you get your audience for this project, or a piece of that audience. So I think it kind of works in tandem, and I don't think it kind of shows that crowdfunding is the only option, because it certainly isn't the only option for web series.
And I also think, too, for web series, you're going direct to fan, or at least most of them are. So why wouldn't you want to make sure that crowdfunding was one of your ways of financing? But you see a lot of web series who they crowdfund for their first season, and then they get more investors or brands involved for their second and third seasons, because they've demonstrated that there's an audience. So, or a lot of times people will foot the bill for their own first season, raise money on crowdfunding for their second season, and then get more people interested, whether it's equity. I see a lot of brands working with lots of different web series, and then there's also lots of different advertising avenues as well, because you have this serialized, and if you get a ritual involved in it, people are then waiting for the next installment. And so I absolutely don't think that crowdfunding is the only business model for web series, but I think it should always be part of it.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I mean, between the three of you, you kind of represent 4 different platforms. There are many more out there. What's something of your chosen platform that you feel it offers uniquely to web series creators? What might cause them to gravitate toward it? And let's start off with John.
I mean, with Indiegogo, I mean, it's pretty much the kind of help that we give. I mean, and this goes for web series, to an extent specifically, but we also have like, so you have the kind of one-on-one attention to the campaign, because I've worked on, again, Freddie Wong's campaign with him and his team very closely, to make sure that, it was like the best campaign he's done. I've worked with, most recently, the Player Piano campaign, and I worked very close with their campaign manager, and they love that, because they're getting this attention that they just don't expect a lot of times. Most people have this idea that a platform is literally just where you go, you put up your campaign, then you run it. Maybe if you're lucky, and this is for some platforms, not all platforms, obviously, but it's just like you're lucky if you get like a yeah that looks good, go ahead, you can go on our site kind of thing. And then it's really something special when you have dedicated experts in the field who can actually look at your campaign, give you that feedback, and then kind of work with you through the whole process, through the duration. They have questions, you have answers. In the middle of the campaign, you check in and you kind of ask them like, hey, what do you guys got planned? Have you thought of X, Y, and Z? That's really the what I look at as like a big Indiegogo type of a difference. For our campaigns, and again, for me especially, because I'm the guy that usually works with all those campaigns.
What about you, Erica?
So Seed and Spark is film specific. So anyone who's coming as an audience member or a contributor is coming there because they are interested in indie film and film in general. And whether that's web series or a feature or a short documentary narrative. So we have, our numbers are really exciting in that the amount of times that people are coming back to contribute to campaigns. They're not just coming for one and then leaving and never coming back. And part of that is because we've built an ecosystem, and it's that we are a crowdfunding platform, but if you successfully crowdfund with us, you're guaranteed distribution on our streaming platform. And then we've also launched partnerships with a number of other VOD and theatrical outlets. So if you raise a certain amount of money for distribution and you gain a minimum amount of followers and supporters, then we will help you with your distribution plan. So our goal is that filmmakers get to keep as much money as they possibly can and can actually make a sustainable living. And it's important to us that that we have a relationship with each one of those filmmakers. So we're smaller on purpose. We're curated, so each filmmaker gets a lot of hands-on attention and lots of rounds of feedback on those pitch videos. And we don't let you launch until you're really ready and you have the best version of your campaign possible.
Okay. And Ben, obviously you don't represent those platforms, Kickstarter and Patreon, but what's something that drew you to use Kickstarter and now Patreon?
Certainly. Well, first of all, I have to say everything Erica is talking about, I haven't done a Seed and Spark campaign myself, but I've advised on several, and that's absolutely the experience those people have had with it. And she and I were talking before the broadcast started, and I just named the first names of the people whose campaigns I worked on, and she immediately knew them, could remind me of the titles. That kind of hands-on attention is just amazing. And what John was talking about with Indiegogo, I've never received that kind of attention from Kickstarter. I had no idea that was available as a service and as an involvement. Everything we've done on Kickstarter has been on our own. And for us, and that's kind of, and that makes switching over really compelling. Actually, I kind of want to look at that now. Reasons we've been on Kickstarter, a lot of it we were early adopters, and it helped legitimize us. There was a lot of excitement around it at the time, and we're now doing our fifth campaign. The company we work with all the time has done 2 campaigns on Kickstarter. We've advised on a number of others, and what we generally find is the value for us in Kickstarter is as a marketing tool. It tends to bring a lot of people on board who would not have seen or encountered the campaign otherwise, just via popular on Kickstarter or finding it through film and video or through whatever else. And they've done a good job of cultivating a community of ongoing funders, but at the same time, they're not the only people by any means who are doing that. As for Patreon, I'm very, very impressed, and I don't know if I'm allowed to say what's coming down the road with them technically, but so I'll just say I've had good phone calls with them, good interaction with email. There are definitely issues with any kind of ongoing subscription service just because people's payment information changes all the time. And what I find with Patreon is you have to estimate that 10 to 20% of the money you're expecting to come in each month won't, because people have to update their cards. What I can say about Patreon is that they have some technical changes coming over the next few months that they've been working on for the last year that are going to up the game in a dramatic way. And the other service that I really want to mention that we haven't touched on at all is BackerKit, which I just think there are a number of services out there that handle campaigns once they're done, but just in terms of ease of being able to manage and work with and support your backers once you're done, and to allow people to continue to fund, because we've constantly had people discovering our campaigns after the fact and saying, what do we do? And we've been saying, I don't know. So whether it's BackerKit or other tools, looking at the post-crowdfunding bits as well is just crucial.
Yeah, I mean, just chiming in with that. I mean, you know, we have a partnership with Amplifier, which is basically BackerKit, but a different name, obviously. And you know, and like people will get like a little discount if you're using like Indiegogo to crowdfund, and then you want to take care of your funders properly. You know, you can go through Amplifier, and they handle all of that, like post campaign stuff, at least the fulfillment aspect. But then we also came up with in demand.
Mm.
It stays open for those people who actually. Oh,
You froze a little
You're
bit.
freezing
Sorry.
up. We thought we lost you. Sorry.
oh no, cool. Yeah, no. So it just basically opens up the campaign again, so that you can keep it open for those people who might have missed that opportunity. They found out like one day too late, or 6 months too late. You know, and they've got it. It all depends at the end of the day on how much you're putting in to promote it. You know, after the fact, and that's something that I wish more campaigners of all kinds did. Is like, you know, use their platform pages as that extra promotional tool, whether it's open again or not. You know?
Yeah, I think that's great. So let's talk a little bit about the aftermath of the campaign. Let's talk a little bit about the very beginning. So it's day one of the crowdfunding campaign. You know, what should they be doing on that day? And as I'm sure you're going to mention, they probably should have been doing other stuff before then too. Why don't you walk them through that day? Let's start off. Who wants to go first? John, you coughed. You get to go first.
Perfect. Anyway. All right. Well, I'm not going to talk that much about social media and why they need to do it before, because I will completely steal the mic and it'll just be over before we know it. Erica knows firsthand. We were on a panel recently together. But I will say very quickly.
Sorry, you're freezing up again.
That's okay. You froze for a second. Very quickly. Yes.
It's okay. See, Google Hangout knows that I'm about to talk like diatribe about social media, so I'm going to stop, I promise. Okay. So on day one, what I always try to tell folks, for me, momentum is key. And momentum is a thing that we're in control of. So we have to make sure that on day one we launch with a high amount of momentum. So I tell people to be sure and reach out to people who they know are going to fund. Before, a couple of days before, send a nice email, you know, telling them about the campaign, doing this kind of a stuff. I call it getting the host committee or your core contributors, whatever terms people like to use, getting those people primed and ready to help on day one. They're going to help. These people are your friends and your family. And if you're lucky enough to have diehard supporters of your actual film and video work, put them in the category too. Send them very personal emails. Get them on board. They're going to fund no matter what. The key thing and the hardest thing is to get them to give to your campaign on day one or by day 3. If they're not, the momentum factor will go down because strangers are just not waiting to find out a brand new campaign is in the town and they're going to throw their money at it. It just doesn't happen. This is the myth. We know it. The general public, you know, or the general folks that do crowdfunding, they don't know it yet, you know, and they find out the hard way. So I try to soften it up and say, guys, reach out to your family, friends, diehard supporters, get them to contribute. If the email doesn't work, that first email, pick up the phone, make a phone call. Nobody says no to somebody through their voice, only on email and internet. Get them to contribute, get that funding going in and going up, and then all of a sudden, strangers like me, when I visit your campaign, I'm going to be like, wow, this is a cool campaign. Holy God, look at that. These people got momentum. 50 people just gave. I don't know that they're your family and friends. These are 50 people just like me. Here's my money. Good luck.
Agreed.
Great. And Erica?
I would say day one, it should be when your plan should already be in the full swing of things. So just like what John was saying, that first 30% is really, really crucial, that getting that momentum, because people want to back a winning horse. They want to be a part of something that's exciting. They don't want to save you or bail you out. They want to join something that's really going to be fun. So day one should be that you already have a schedule of all of your different social media posts, your social media and outreach strategy. Who are you reaching out to? Who are your partners? What are you giving to them? What is that, what are all the different materials and videos? So day one, you already have that plan in place and that you've already started it. So the prep for your campaign and the outreach for your campaign has hopefully started, a month or 2 months before you're even launching. But that first day is really important. If you can do a first day or first 3 day only incentive that gets people engaged right away, and it encourages people to contribute and then to tell other people that they know, because your audience is really something that you've built one person at a time, and that you're trying to get those people to become amplifiers. And in order to do that, you have to have that momentum going. But day one is sort of if you can have a first day only incentive or an event that you're throwing, anything that really kicks it off with a boom. And all of that takes quite a bit of planning ahead of time.
Okay, and Ben?
I feel like they covered day one particularly well. Maybe if I could just talk a little bit about the planning part of it and some of the things and resources you can do. For our latest campaign, we did a lot of Facebook work, a lot of Twitter work, and we really we built a special landing web page to gather email addresses for people interested in the campaign. So by the time we launched, we had 800 plus people who we knew were excited specifically about this and ready to come on board and to pledge. There are, you can build your own stuff for that. There's also there are tools like Crowdfunding if you don't want to do your own coding. There are tools like Nouncy.com, which is awesome, which allows all of your core supporters to write their social media posts for Facebook and for Twitter and for other platforms in advance, and so you can kind of build this long list of all the posts talk about this campaign that are going to go live. And then when you click the button, every single post hits Facebook and Twitter at the same time, which makes it look like there's a huge amount of activity all at once, and that can be a huge way to kind of help beat the algorithm as well. And that tool is really quite useful. Most of our funding still comes through Facebook, despite how much their algorithm has changed. A lot of that comes down to coming up with really strong images that evoke kind of the spirit of the campaign, what it's about, and then making sure that there's a call to action in each one, whether it's signing up for the Nouncy or getting your name onto an email list or going to pre-fund or wherever else. You want a way to not just spread awareness, but to make sure that you can reach these people who are excited about your campaign. And then beyond that, especially if you're going to plan on doing this again, make sure that you maintain those lists, that you're constantly building them, that you're always creating ways for your fans to stay in touch with you and for you to be able to reach them. So like for us, we built that specific email list. We have another 8,000 people we can reach from other campaigns that we've done in the past. We have other Kickstarters we can reach. We've also backed over 100 other campaigns and supported them and helped them succeed, and those are all people we can reach out to as well to say, hey, could you help boost the signal? And that kind of community support between and among crowdfunders is a really crucial element as well.
Great. All right, so we may get back to marketing just a little bit. I'm sure John would have some really great stuff for that. But before we do that, I mean, you guys have given a lot of great tips, but what's one that you haven't already covered, big tip that you would like to share to help create a successful crowdfunding campaign? And
budget.
Budget. Okay.
Budget very carefully. Understand all of your costs. Don't make any assumptions. Give yourself a margin. It's always going to cost more money and take more time than your best case scenario. But it's so crucial.
Mm-hmm. And I think also along that line with budgeting, you also have to keep in mind the cost of perks, right? So you don't have any nasty surprises when you're done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing that's really wonderful about being able to crowdfund for web series is that you're going to have an opportunity to reach out to your audience so many more times. So I think already in the crowdfunding stage, really building up a schedule and a ritual. I like to think of things in terms of ritual so that people are waiting and expecting things at a certain time. So you release your episodes at a certain time, and then you start to schedule out your outreach as well. So the wonderful thing about web series is that hopefully you have a lot of different avenues for different materials. So I think in any crowdfunding campaign, you want to look at your images, your videos, but what are all of the materials that you can gather, and how can you create a strategy, an outreach strategy around those things? So is that memes of your different characters? Is it different themes for outreach for Tuesdays and Thursdays, and something else happens on a Wednesday? So really sort of mining your web series and all of its different characters and different storylines, and being able to use that in the outreach for your crowdfunding campaign. But not just thinking of things in terms of what are you going to write, what are the tweets going to say, but this is a visual world that we're in. So how can you entice people visually? So the more images and the more videos that you can plan on ahead of time, the better. So if you've already shot some of your web series, being able to use outtakes from that, making sure when you're filming your pitch video that you're thinking about update videos, things like that.
Great. And John?
Yeah, that's all brilliant. I especially agree with Erica. It's like with that part, it's about story and not just tweeting for the sake of tweeting, or because you need to tweet and you need to do this, because then it becomes a job, and it sounds like it's a job that you might not like, so you shouldn't probably do it. So I could totally talk about that, but I think that the one piece of advice I would give, and I give everyone more and more every day, is it's sort of budgeting, but it's set your goal properly. That's the biggest piece of advice I'll ever give. I find I work with a lot of campaigns. Again, some of them raise $2 million, some of them raise $2,000. People don't realize that it's still difficult to raise $20,000. It's difficult if you don't have all of these other things in place, and sometimes, to be quite honest, even if you do. So what you really want to do is look at yourself, and people, filmmakers especially, I guess we don't like to look at ourselves so much inside and realize how much social capital do we have, how good are our friendships. We got to ask ourselves some seriously deep questions to be able to say, okay, how am I getting this $20,000 or $50,000? And again, if you can't get that 30% within that first 3 days, that's my rule. 30%, 3 days. You can't get it, the momentum factor is going to be difficult as heck. And my mentality is simple: shoot low, aim high. I want you to aim, shoot to hit that 30% from your friends, family, host committee so quickly, because I want you to be able to hit your goal in half the time of your campaign. Why is that? Because I want you to double your goal by the end of it. And I can help you do that. But you got to definitely be in that set. You got to be in that mindset of, what can I realistically raise? And then how can I raise more once I got it? That's the way I think folks need to start thinking about things, but they just don't, because we see 200,000 here, 500,000 there. I can do that. Look on the back end, see how hard they had to work for that, and then compare.
So do you think when someone's trying to figure out a goal, they should be looking at, should they be aiming at how much they think they can get from their friends, family, and filmmaking friends and such connections? That 30% amount then, as that base?
Yeah, I usually, exactly. I mean, I tell people, I have 3 questions that I tell them to ask themselves. And 3 questions are really quick and simple. Number 1, what is your social media like right now? What is your social like? Then I tell them, put that aside for a second. Number two, do you know where 30% is going to come from? And then based on that answer, and I usually tell them the answer if they get it wrong. They get it wrong a lot. They usually say like, oh, Facebook and Twitter. It's like, that's not where 30% is coming from. Friends, family, diehard supporters. Now, question number three, can you get that 30% within 3 days? And if the answer is anything less than an emphatic shit yes, then I say, take a look at yourself and find out what you know 110% you can get 30%. Three, set that as your goal, and then hit that in half the time of the campaign so you can double, and sometimes I've seen triple it, you know, with the right strategy. That's what I do. I'm a strategist. That's what I do is stretch goals, you know, gamification. I mean, that's the stuff that makes campaigning worthwhile, not setting a high goal and then not being able to change it or fix it, and then you ultimately have a failed campaign. A lot of knowledge gained, which is awesome, so it's not a failure, but in the grand scheme of the way the general public looks at crowdfunding still, unless you hit that goal and go over it, it's a failure. Very unfortunate.
I think one last thing in this part, and we haven't touched on it a whole lot, part of the research that goes into any crowdfunding campaign is who is it for? Who is your audience, and where are they? So we talked a little bit about, you know, the they out there, not expecting that they will find you, but who is that audience, and what do they like, and where are they? So actually doing, you know, very specific interviews with people, you know, what social media platforms are, if you think that they're going to be the audience for your web series, where are they watching web series right now? Where are they watching other content? Where would they want to see it when it was done? What social media platforms are they on? Where do they get their news? How do they like to be spoken to? So that you are really doing a lot of investigating on who are these people and what are their habits. They're not sort of a big general they out there. And it will start with people that you know directly. And the whole idea is that you're growing your audience every time. So you have to know about them and not just expect them to be able to find you. And I have filmmakers have to, you know, answer these questions very, very specifically. And then you start to see, are there partners that I could partner with that will help me with the outreach, that I can tap into their existing networks and things like that. But it takes a lot of research and a lot of time because, you know, people ask the question a lot of times, you know, well, I guess I can only raise money once then if the people I'm raising money from are my friends and family. And if you're only raising money from your friends and family and that pool isn't growing each time into more and more avid supporters, then yeah, you will run through their patience unless you're making kick-ass, amazing stuff that they want to keep supporting, which hopefully you are. But you need to keep growing the pool. You need to keep growing the pool of audience and people who are your avid supporters so that you can keep funding your projects directly from your fans.
Mm-hmm. Great. I'm kind of curious. We're talking about finding your audience. Since we have someone on the panel who has a niche audience that they've gathered, I'm just kind of curious, Ben, how did you try to search out that audience in different places online and such, and grow that audience? Because it's mainly tabletop gamers primarily is how it first started.
We've been building the audience since 2002. I mean, that's really what it is. It's been a long-term effort and involved creating a couple of films that ended up becoming really beloved among that community, and when we moved toward web series, being able to bring them along with us and kind of rise above the noise level to the point where discovery from new fans was possible.
Okay. And, you know, we'll have a future episode on marketing web series, but as people probably figured out now from our various answers, marketing is pretty important, very important. They don't teach you that in film school usually, so at least I didn't learn it. So what's another tip you would give for helping spread that word for crowdfunding? It could be any kind of app, a certain way to use a platform, certain tactic, whatever.
I think the organization is so key. I can't stress it enough. I think John and I beat this horse until it's pretty dead when we talk to filmmakers. But that the more you have a plan in place and you're using tools like Hootsuite, for instance, to schedule your tweets, and using different schedulers for Facebook and things like that. But all of that plan is super important, but until you know how you're talking about your project specifically, then that doesn't do you a whole lot of good to make a big plan. So what's the tone? What are the images? Who are you reaching out to, and what are you saying? That's really, really important, and sort of collecting that archive of materials that you can then schedule and plan, and then paying attention when things aren't working. I think that there's this sense of there's this panic of well, I figured it out. I figured out what I'm supposed to say and no one's listening, but I'm just going to keep, continuing on with this same tone. So what's getting retweeted? Where are the conversations actually happening and sparking that you can join in? I think marketing a lot of times is seen as this sort of a one-way street. And I think if you can really start to think about marketing as a conversation, that you're building a network of people. You're not just trying to talk at them. So where can you create partners? Where can you create real, true fans, which often feels a lot like a friendship? You're exchanging information and you're giving things them that they actually want. So, really creating a more of a human experience, and not thinking about marketing and branding and advertising as this sort of bad thing, but really bringing a human element into it.
Yeah. And if I could just chime in on that, I mean, it's, we beat it down, but it needs beating sometimes. With love, of course.
Lots of love.
Yeah,
lots of love.
Yeah, tons. But yeah, I mean, I used to, with marketing, and I try not to use those words, even branding. I mean, it slips out sometimes, I forget the Stephen Pressfield, version of it occasionally, the cultural lifestyle type thing. But that's really what we're trying to cultivate: relationships, not transactions. I used to, years ago after I ran my first campaign, I came up with these 3 P's of crowdfunding, which was pitch, perks, and promotion. And then you have to personalize all of those 3. Recently I did this TED Talk where I completely said, screw all that. I'm going to change the letters to I's. And so instead of, promotion as the marketing part, because promotion is just like maybe pick up a bullhorn and start, hey, support my campaign, I realized there was nothing personal about that. And I realized the one thing that matters is the interactions between your audience and you, and the crowd and you, whether or not they've given money, whether or not they even know you yet. Just interact. Somebody follows you, say hi, start a conversation. It takes a lot of time, but that's how you build a relationship that later on will turn into a transaction and then some. But right now, it's all about kind of putting that interaction into play, and that's really I think it's one of the hardest things. You can schedule the tweets about your campaign, but you can't schedule the interactions, and those are what matters. And I tell people all the time, because I work with a campaigner that has I'll see their Twitter, and they have 50,000 followers, 1 million followers. Doesn't impress me at all. I look down and I start seeing how many times they've tweeted since they were, Twitterized. Not a word, but you get it. And then I'll start looking at their interactions. When their followers talk to them, do they talk back? That is what I gauge what a person can raise, how well their campaign is going to do, because that's the only thing that matters. The number, you could buy that shit, you could buy followers, it doesn't matter. Interaction, you can't fake it.
Yeah.
Great.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. A huge part of my day, basically, I read every comment on Facebook, every comment on Twitter, every comment on YouTube, moderate, take the time, because that's the only way I'm going to know where the fans are, and it's the only way I'm going to build the personal relationships, where I'm not just in it for their wallet. We're in it to build a community, and community is a two-way street.
Okay, great. So we're about to wrap up here. Before we go, I do want each of you to tell everyone where they can find you online. So let's start off with, I don't know if you guys see the exact same thing I do, but let's start off to the left with Ben.
Sure. Well, right now you can find me online by searching on Kickstarter for Pilot Season. We've been trending on the front page for the last 2 days in the popular section, so it should be really easy. And from there are links to find the rest of what we do, but that's the important thing right now.
Okay. And Erica?
You can find me on Twitter at Wings of a Pig, or Seed and Spark. It's just seedandspark.com.
I like that Twitter handle.
Yes, thank you very much.
And John?
Cool. Yeah, you can find me mostly on Twitter. It's at Trigonus, which is at my last name, and Facebook, all the normal places you can find me, and definitely at Indiegogo, and yeah, that's about it. Those are the important spots.
Well, great. Well, I want to thank each of you for being on the show. I know all of you are extremely busy, and I think we have people, I think we're across country, with Seattle and New York. And are you in New York also, Erica?
No, I'm in Los Angeles.
All right. See, we're all over the place.
Yeah.
So that's really great, and great to use this tool for that purpose. And I want to thank everybody else who's watched this first episode. We'd love to hear what you liked, what you like to see. We're still going to be working on the format and improving it as we go. Our next topic will be about writing for web series. We'll have some really great guests on that show. We'll announce them soon. It'll be the same thing too about there's IAWTV.org/CCC. Triple C sounds like a pro wrestler. It's a show. You can go there to find every episode, and
we should have pro wrestling.
We should have pro wrestling. That would be a topic. And about what future topics you would like us to cover, and of course future guests also. So really appreciate everybody. Oh, and also to actually contact me. My email address is Marx Pyle, MARXYLE @IAWTV.org. So thank you, everyone, and thank you, our guests, Ben, Erica, and John. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Take care.